And my bad, I won't call you Andrew online.
No worries. We are live. We are live with the playoffs outsiders, joined by Harrison and Jabari. Jabari Davis of Basketball Insiders. Brain fart there. How's it going, Jabari?
No worries. Yeah, obviously I have them as well. Thanks for having me on again with you.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure talking to, I mentioned in the recap or preview to this podcast, the always insightful. I cannot say the same thing about Harrison, though. How are you doing, Harrison?
I'm okay. I'm not feeling particularly insightful, so you weren't wrong.
No, it's going to be a good show. We don't have all that much Lakers news to go over, but we are a week away from the lottery. I mentioned in a tweet this morning, I really hope these night sweats go away. I'm looking like the main character from Silicon Valley. It's been a rough few weeks. Jabari, how are you holding up? Are you ready for the stress that comes with this lottery?
I'm ready for it. To be honest with you, more than anything, I'm just ready to find out what pick, how things are going to shape up. We can speculate all we like. We can, have night sweats and, worry, and kind of, hug ourselves in a small ball all we'd like. But until we find out which pick they're going to get, it's all just, it's all just talk.
Harrison, give me a percentage of your day spent in and out of the fetal position thinking about the lottery.
It's probably 50-50. I'm ready for I'm ready for some finality. I'm actually writing a column. I actually wrote a column about that that's like set for next week. But I'm with Jabari. I'm just ready for to know what's going to happen. Like one way or another, at least next season. Like there's almost no way it can be as bad as this year. And once kind of the lottery's locked in, then we'll know a lot more about how that's going to look.
Yeah, and we're about to hit on that a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about more than an 80% chance that the Lakers keep their pick, right? It's like an 82% chance that the Lakers keep their pick. And the percentages actually break down fairly reasonably if you actually want the actual percentages. Shameless plug here, go to LakersOutsiders.com, and Ryan Kellepar put that together. But yeah, the chances are pretty high. That's why our buddy on Twitter, Rye Cole, was talking about how he's not sure he wants to watch. I can't imagine missing that night. I called out of work. I said I'm not going to be there. I probably should call out the next day too, for beverage purposes. But yeah, I can't imagine not watching. You're going to be tuned in, right, Jabari?
I'll definitely be tuned in. You kind of. Even though it's it's a bit anticlimactic at the end of the day, you want to see who knows do we know who they're sending to represent the team?
It's Byron.
It's Byron.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be an interesting one. Yeah. No, I'll be tuning in.
Yeah, it's. What do you think about the choice of Byron? We talked about this a little bit on our last show between Harrison and I. But what do you think about the choice?
Well, he's the head coach of the organization. I know that we'll probably discuss that later on in the show at some point. But as the head coach, it makes sense. They sent Big Game last year. That didn't necessarily work out, as well as they would have liked. Although obviously everybody's happy that Julius Randle is not, is now, looking strong and looking as though he's going to, return with a bang. So yeah, why not?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if the Lakers keep their pick, that's the most positive press Byron has got since being hired. So that's a good thing. They're trying to help him out a little bit.
I think I'm in the minority, but I don't know about you guys, but I could not care less who they send. I don't think it makes a difference at all. I'm the thing I'm most curious about, and I think I've made this joke before, is if Byron uncrosses his arms if they win the pick. Like, does he celebrate at all, or does he just kind of sit there stone-faced, just glaring at the lottery machine?
Well, the one thing that we can guarantee is if it ends up being the 2 or the 3 or the 4 or the 5, there's going to be there will be fans on Twitter saying it's Byron's fault. You see, you see how he did that. You see how he didn't unfold his arms, or you see it's going to be all him. You know this.
Well, all right. So that means I have to unschedule that tweet. Great, thanks.
There you go. There you go. You have them all saved in the draft. See the number 2 pick, Byron's Falls. See the number 3. Is that how you have it?
Yeah.
Kind of layered, ready to go. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I did. Not anymore.
I'm glad I'm not.
There are more puns than that, but you know,
Yeah.
you had the gist of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So yeah, talking about the lottery right now, like we talked, everybody knows at this point, it's been covered ad nauseum. The Lakers are in the 4th slot of the lottery, so we're just going to try to figure out at that 4th spot a consensus number 4 pick, and then from there we can talk about which free agents and other news that kind of came up along the way. So at number 4, you got to think Towns won't be available. You got to think Okafor won't be available. So it'll probably come down to someone like Moutier, Russell, and then the next tier down after that. So Jabari, do you have somebody slotted for yourself at that 4 spot?
Well, it's tough because say everything shakes out like according to how the ping pong balls are lined up. It depends on what Philly does at the 3. If they end, I've heard that they're very, we've all heard that they're very interested in Moutier as well. So if he's gone, I think you probably end up being D'Angelo Russell. But it really, in my opinion, it's going to be one of those 2 guys if they're both available.
Right, and I tend to agree. It is going to be a point guard up there. Harrison, what do you think about? Would you go with a point guard, or would you look at Willie Trill, Cauley-Stein? Would you look at Justice Winslow? Would you? I just wanted to say Willie Trill, Cauley-Stein. I'm guilty.
I think he should have went full on and changed his name to Trilly. But so we just did. We have like a big board coming for Silver Screen and Roll, and so I got my submissions in, and I have Russell as my 3rd, and then I actually put Cauley-Stein 4. Because I just like we're doing a Lakers centric one, so fit with the Lakers, and I just like I'm not 100% sure about Moutier. I've seen some of his stuff and I've been impressed, but I just think Cauley-Stein is such a perfect fit next to Randall that if he can kind of do the things that like we think are his upside, which is like being a great rim protector, being a great pick and roll guy. Like running the floor really well, defending like 1 through 5 at times, not like obviously over the course of a game, but on switches and such. And like he can do that for like 10 years. I don't see why he's not a perfect fit next to Randall and why you don't take him.
Yeah, that makes sense. You talk about Willie going full bore with his name. I wish he would have been Willie has no Trill. Cauley-Stein. That would have been my choice. But I would say the issue I have with Cauley-Stein is he's a year older, for one, and I can't bank on Julius Randle over the next 10 years, seeing as I've seen him play maybe a quarter of actual NBA basketball.
I think 13 minutes, 49 seconds.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to bank on that's our front court of the future. When I haven't seen very much of him, and the injuries, lower body injuries on big men rarely end well. Sorry for the doomsday thing. But Jabari, you mentioned Philadelphia. If they were to follow their recent trend, right, and continue to just tank and tank and tank and tank, wouldn't the pick therefore probably be Moutier? Because they're looking for either somebody who aids in the tanking efforts or could be a superstar, and that seems to fit Moutier, right?
Honestly, you kind of. I think it was you earlier that said like you're just uncertain about Moutier, or is it Moutier or Moutier?
I think it's Moutier.
Moutier, okay, because I've heard it like 5 different ways.
Yeah.
All right, so Moutier. And this is in no way saying that he's not great, that he's not going to be incredible. I've seen the same footage. I saw a lot of the highlights. From the CBA. But the thing of it is, and I hate to even bring this name up because I'm not comparing the two. But because of what took place this past season with Dante Exum, I'm a little bit hesitant on guys that I haven't been able to watch over the past year and a half on a for a full game. I don't want to say YouTube. I don't want to say YouTube All Stars or anything. I don't want to put that on Moody Eye, but I just need to see more before I can say like, yeah, he's going to be the point guard of the future. Again, now there are individuals far more in tune, far more with far more access than me that would be more appropriate. I guess you could say to ask about him. Until we start hearing the stories about draft pre-draft workouts and for multiple teams, I'm just of the opinion he's a great talent, but I got to see more.
Well, you talk about the pre-draft workout. I think he's planning on skipping out the combine, right? Like he's
skipping the combine, but he's still going to participate in pre-draft workouts for individual teams.
Oh yeah,
You don't go into the draft with skipping the entire process, especially as a relative unknown.
Right.
I think he is going to kind of ride his urban legend status like Exum did last year as much as he can. Like teams are kind of tantalized by the unknown, I think, a little bit. And so like I like that when we've seen him in China, like what he's doing against grown men. So that is a little bit more impressive than going against like an overmatched walk-on from like X state over here. But at the same time, we only have slightly more footage of him than we do of like Bigfoot or like the Chupacabra. So it's like you have to have a little bit of worry there.
Now, the thing that you talk about, grown men. Have you watched the actual highlights? Because the defense they play there, they look like they're all playing with 5 fouls. Like, it's pretty bad. They're all just, he like goes by some guy and is like, oh shoot, sorry, looks like you went by me. And then the help defense is like, oh crap, sorry, I can't get there. Man, and Russell looked really effing good this season.
Russell's above him on my board for sure.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and say Russell somehow magically falls to the Lakers at 4, and that seems like a decent consensus to ride with. Mm-hmm. Based on that, now you have Russell, looks like Clarkson, Kobe, and then Randall as the 4 guys that definitely aren't going anywhere. Everybody else looks pretty expendable. I mean, and relatively expendable. Like, if somebody says, hey, we'll trade you Anthony Davis for Julius Randle, then yeah, you probably do that one. But relatively non-expendable, you got those 4 guys. There's news recently this past week of the Lakers getting ready to prepare a max offer sheet to Jimmy Butler of Chicago. Harrison, I know you don't think that there's any chance in hell that Chicago doesn't match that offer. What would you put the percentage at?
I mean, I would honestly say 100, but since nothing's 100%, like probably 95. I just don't see how anything short of like a fax machine error, like they don't like sign that and match that offer sheet in time.
That makes sense.
Like the Lakers would have to like hire somebody to cut power at the United Center or something on that 3rd day, and then Chicago they're trying to get their offer sheet to the league office. They're trying to make calls, whatever, and they just can't do it. And then we get Jimmy Butler, but otherwise.
All right. So for any listeners in Chicago, you were just told by Harrison to send in a bomb threat to the United Center that day.
Don't think that's what I said.
I'm just kidding. He just said cut power. Don't worry about it. Jabari, what would you say? I mean, Chicago has a reputation for being notoriously cheap, right? So I wouldn't say all the way at 100% that they for sure re-sign him. It's mostly wishful thinking, but how would you define it?
I was just gonna say it's wishful thinking. It's look, if I'm the Lakers, I'm at least going to make it a difficult decision, or at least force their hand. Like for instance, if you were to ask about Kawhi Leonard, I would be right there with Harrison and say it's 100%. There's 0% chance that the Spurs are going to let him go, because they would not only would it be foolish, but let's just be honest. When you don't associate the Spurs and foolish in the same sentence pretty much ever. Chicago, on the other hand, we have seen them, you kind of get cute at times, or simply just make, foolish decisions. That said, if I'm Chicago, there's still no chance I'm letting him go either. So if I'm the Lakers, I go ahead and I extend the offer. If I'm the Bulls, there's no chance in the world I let him go.
And we're all in agreement, too, that Jimmy Butler is worth the max at this stage in his career.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you think that, like, though, if Chicago's going to be cheap, don't you think they, like, during that 3-day period, like, if they're going to cheap out and they gotta get some payroll off their books, don't you think that they'd trade, like, Powell or Noah or, like, somebody like that somewhere before they don't match on Butler?
Yes, right. Exactly. Joakim Noah, would be, in my opinion, would be the guy that would be moved. Or I hadn't even thought about Powell, but you're exactly right. He's got another couple years on that deal. They didn't add in a no trade for that, did they?
No. You can only do that if you have a certain amount of years with a team. They might have had like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge one, but they can't do that on
nothing
the books.
legally binding.
Okay. And also the extended moral of the story here is that by extending that max offer, you're now forcing Chicago's hand to make that type of decision, like Jabari said. And the other thing too, like quick tangent, I'm binge watching Entourage because the movie is coming out in June, and I just saw this scene the other day where Vinny hadn't gotten an offer in a while, and the only offer that came in was to do an Olsen twins like straight to DVD movie, and the quote that Ari used was, "Hey, you only get that offer if they think there's a chance they can get you." So it was an indictment on Vinny's decisions, just like it's an indictment on Chicago's history with personnel that they would get this kind of offer, because now you have teams around the league that think you guys bungle this regularly. Let's force your hand here a little bit.
I'm actually not as much on. I don't know that I want to tie up the Lakers' cap space for 3 days on a guy that I'm 95% sure they aren't going to get. I'd rather go after, spend that time going after Middleton or somebody that's a little bit more obtainable.
KJ McDaniel.
Harrison, that's an excellent point. What I think, to be honest with you, because look, when it comes to the Lakers, one thing that we know for a fact is they don't leak information unless it's for a particular reason. So for this story to even come out at all at this time, in my estimation, either it's not from the Lakers at all, and it's actually from Jimmy Butler's agent, or it's a matter of let's just float this out there and see how much interest is there, and see if we can start generating a conversation. But even though this story, all of that to say, even though the story came out, there's still no guarantee that they absolutely do this. I don't, like you, I don't think Mitch and Jimmy are going to be interested in tying that money up if they're, if there's not like a specific, reason. And
then when we spent all our, the lion's share of this free agent talk on Jimmy Butler. Again, this is Harrison's point in issue, right? Where we spend all this time, and now we don't have very much time to talk about the rest of the free agents that the Lakers could go after. This is exactly what Harrison was trying to do. Way to go, Harrison.
Yeah, it was a good segue.
So other free agents. Then really quick, we'll talk about a minute on that before we get to our next topic. Is there somebody at the top of your free agent desire list, Jabari?
Really, I'm not certain, because we kind of need to see where they go in the draft. If they end up with one of the top 2 picks, and somehow are able to get a big, then obviously they might be looking at for a guard or a back, a swingman type guy. It really depends on that. I may be in the minority here, and please feel free to crush me if so. I'm still interested in seeing what takes place with DeMarcus Cousins. I know you're either hot or cold in terms of whether you whether you think you think he's a worthwhile gamble. But I'm not just looking at the numbers. I've watched that young man develop over the last few years. Is he always going to be I don't want to say temperamental. Is he always going to be an emotional guy? Yes, but he's a far cry from the guy that had nonstop outbursts and was a guy that I at one point actually saw as a franchise killer. I'm interested to see what type of if he actually becomes available, and because if I'm the Lakers, to be quite honest with you, if he becomes available and like say they don't end up with a top 3 pick, say it ends up being like say 5, and they want us to put together a package, that is the direction that I absolutely would go.
Yeah, I mean, only 5 in my opinion. Only 5. Where like the other, because there is a tier that it drops off. I would say after those top 4 players, at 5 is when I would have that conversation. I don't know if I would do it. The issue is you have flexibility by drafting somebody. So when you trade for a Cousins, in my opinion, when you trade for a Cousins, you're not only are you moving the actual asset being the pick, but you're also moving the flexibility to also make a second move afterwards. So you could be, you're going to put your package together to acquire Cousins, but then on top of that, you almost have to mathematically add in like some intangible player X that the Lakers could have also gotten with the added flexibility. What do you think, Harrison? Would you be interested in DeMarcus?
Oh, I'd be interested in DeMarcus. I just I'm not sure that I'm willing to trade that pick, and like you said, the flexibility that comes with that, and the kind of honestly the patience for the rebuild. Because once you trade for DeMarcus, then all of a sudden you're on the clock again, and you're having to start trying to build a winning team. He doesn't want to sit around there and rebuild with the Lakers again. He's just been doing that his entire career in Sacramento, where they keep telling him, "Oh, next year we're going to bring in some guys and we're going to compete for a playoff spot." So I don't know if I want to necessarily accelerate the shot clock on that rebuild.
Yeah, and all right. So Jabari, which way would you rather go here? Would you rather trade for or put a package together for DeMarcus, or because I don't know. I don't know how you feel about Kevin Love, but I don't think he's sticking around in Cleveland. Would you rather just sign Kevin Love outright or try to acquire DeMarcus Cousins via trade?
And that's really tough because I'm not necessarily as down on Kevin Love as as some are. That said, if you're giving me a choice, strictly between those 2 players, I would choose DeMarcus. Understanding, but I understand it's not exactly, like okay, either DeMarcus
player,
what you have to put in because of what you would conceivably have to put into a DeMarcus deal. And here's the thing, just to quickly to go to Harrison's point, because you're right, it definitely accelerates the pace. It definitely makes it to where it's it's go time right now. But this, I honestly think that the Lakers organization is kind of in that mindset, privately. I think that, I wrote an article, a few months back where where I was talking about, hey, it would be awesome to see them go and obviously see whomever they got in this year's draft continue to develop Randall and really go with and I know you guys remember the Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, even Eldon Campbell years where it was just those young guys running around. That would be a lot of fun. That I just don't think that's
they want to go there again.
Mindset that they're in. I think it's going to come, but I think they're trying to go for broke this offseason. I really do.
I kind of agree with you, but that's just different from actually what I would want. I think was more what I was trying to say.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, I mean all the Rondo talk and all that stuff. It kind of tells me they do want to, however misguided, try and win this season.
I would. This is a perfect time to segue. Then, I mean, if you're right here, Jabari, and you talk about how they're willing to accelerate their rebuild and they want to get into playoff contention again, is Byron the coach to have that done with, right? Where he took a lot of criticism and a lot of it was extremely unfair given how terrible that roster was, but given his history, in the NBA, can he lift a team to, higher than they would expect it to be, given the roster buildup?
Well, okay, there are layers to that one. Because when you mentioned given his history, outside of a very bad roster as well in Cleveland in a total rebuild, his history is much better than it seems a lot of folks on Twitter, either remember last year and I throw that in the garbage. And this is this is like we talked about it before the show. This is no disrespect to like the guys like Tarek Black, the guys like Wes Johnson, and all of those guys that were in that locker room that were quite frankly really cool and to be honest with you, never really showed any true frustration toward the media. Always answered the same questions over and over again. So no disrespect towards them whatsoever. But when I say this year was a throwaway season, when you look at this roster, you could not have anticipated anything better than this. I mean, I know a lot of folks went into it thinking oh, hey, if Kobe stays healthy, if we all realize over the last few years, all those ifs are not going to come to fruition. They're just not going to. So when we all looked at that roster, and then you tie in the fact that Julius Randle was out from what did you guys mention, after 13 minutes and 49 seconds into
something like that
rookie season. I can't judge Byron based upon that. So for me, yes, I would like to see I'd actually like to see what he could do with a decent roster, with an actual roster that's building and not just kind of holding over.
Right, Harrison, I'm pretty outspoken on Twitter about how I feel about Byron. But Harrison, what do you think? I mean, if the Lakers are trying to build for the playoffs, is Byron a playoff coach with this organization in the Western Conference?
I mean, honestly, no, I don't think that. But do I think that they're going to give him the chance to prove it one way or another? Yeah, I do. I think that they're going to give him, I think, every opportunity to kind of either show or not show that he's the guy to take them to that next level and that he can lead to improvement of talent. And my biggest thing with him is it just doesn't seem like he gets the most out of his talent. It seems like if he has a talented team, he can do okay. But it doesn't seem like he ever gets more out of guys than what you would expect of them.
Right, and oh man, my issue with Byron isn't necessarily anything on court, but the quotes that he repeatedly had off it, where he was throwing guys under the bus repeatedly, the guys didn't compete tonight, the guys didn't follow my game plan tonight, the guys didn't do this tonight, and at no point did he ever, and few coaches do, only the really great ones do, look themselves in the mirror, but man, at some point it would have been nice for him to say, you know what, I kind of bungled down the stretch here. I'm not sure why I didn't play Jordan Clarkson over, Ron Price earlier on in the season, and that annoyed me.
Yeah, it's like you don't always expect coaches to say oh, tonight's loss was on me, because those guys have less job security than anybody. But just don't throw the players under the bus for the loss. Like you don't have to go to that degree.
Right.
Honestly,
go ahead.
Not to be, I assure you not to be, completely argumentative, but sometimes we're a little bit closer to things than a single coach. If you were in their market and you listen to all of their post game quotes and all of the they do this is the way coaches handle their business in a majority of situations. You have some coaches where they're a little bit better at navigating with the media after games, but Greg Popovich, pretty much down the line. There are some that are even far worse than Byron Scott in terms of in terms of holding players accountable, through the media. I understand that the delivery at times, it may come across as, well, for one, it comes across as funny to me, but it may come across as oh, he's throwing them under the bus. But I assure you, other coaches do the same exact thing. Like I'm telling you, when when players play poorly, they get they get called out on it.
Right. Yeah, but I think it's different in a rebuilding situation. You don't at least I haven't seen as much Brett Brown throwing the Sixers under the bus, because he knows that they're not expected to win. He kind of talks about the positives that certain guys showed in their individual games after the game, and he says, yeah, we didn't execute tonight, we didn't win, but it just doesn't seem as directly almost attacking or throwing the players under the bus and blaming them. Obviously the players didn't play well if you lost or they didn't play well enough. But like you said, this wasn't an NBA team, and to throw all the blame on them for losses and things like it's just unfair.
No, and that's a fair statement. Okay. I'm trying to be diplomatic about it. There were about 3 or 4 individuals in that locker room or on that roster, and then some of them are fan favorites. That let's just say they were never going to vibe well with with Byron Scott. And it was very evident from the start. I'll just say, Nick Young is an individual where like a lot of us love his like his free will and and being funny and hey I'm swaggy this and that and the other. But if you don't bring it, and if you look, Byron's the type of guy where he doesn't suffer fools. He if you bring that type of attitude, but you're busting your butt, maybe he's going to let you go. But if you're not busting it, and if you're not giving like a consistent effort, and then or you're the type of guy that you're only concerned with the offensive end, or excuse me, with your shots on the offensive end. You're just not gonna. It's not gonna work. It just isn't. So no, I hear you. 100% in terms of like some of the personalized attacks, but I also will say, the front office needs to probably address some of the individuals on this roster that it's just not ever going to work with Byron. And it would not surprise me if Nick is one of those individuals.
I mean, I'll name some names. I knew like going into the year, or I was like pretty sure that Nick Young and Jeremy Lin were going to be two guys that didn't necessarily vibe as much with Byron. They just personality clashes.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially Nick, and to a certain extent, like we heard a little bit of the same stuff with Wesley Johnson, and then pretty much everybody that was in that stupid video after the Celtic game. that pretty much summed it up. So and when he criticized the video, like I was fine with that. That video rubbed me the wrong way. Like, way to go, guys! You guys beat a crappy Celtics team in November and all that stuff. Like, way to go! But on like a random game in Thursday on some Thursday where they lost late and Jordan Clarkson played well or something like that, or Ed Davis rebounded out of his mind. I'd have liked to seen, we lost, but we're still seeing some progress here, like Harrison said.
Can I just say one last thing really quickly? I think So I actually agree 100% with you guys, on this, but I think the greatest testament to whether whether a coach is actually getting through to those players is how they perform, how they the type of effort they give even afterwards. And the one thing that we can pretty much say about this team is, even though they were overmatched, even though at times they were getting thrown under the bus, even though they had personality conflicts, between Byron and some of those guys, they came out and played hard on a very consistent basis. Like they may have gotten beaten up in certain games, but they played pretty hard for him on a regular basis. So even though we may not like the optics of him going back and forth or saying things in the media, he must have been doing something behind the scenes in order to get through to these guys, or at least keep a majority of them on his side, because they came out and they played hard for him.
Well, we've kind of been talking about all year. How much of that is him, and how much of it is their impending free agency?
It's both.
It's both. Yeah. But we've also seen situations where where basically the players just said, okay, to hell with this guy. It doesn't matter what and it didn't quite get to that. It didn't get to that level. So I don't know.
We saw that, like, an example of what you're talking about, Jabari, would be Powell with Mike D'Antoni, right?
Yes. Or Denver, or the Denver locker room with Brian Shaw this past season. They totally gave up on him, and that was just not going to work. Like that, it was evident. It was very evident that it was okay. Well, even though I personally like Brian Shaw, I think I hope he gets another opportunity at some point in this league. It was very evident that he was not going to win that locker room. It just wasn't.
Yeah. Did you guys saw the 1, 2, 3, 3 weeks cheer that they did?
Yeah, come on, yeah.
That's incredible. That's so good.
I
wish it had been like 1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Exactly, Nick Van Exel.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so the last little bit that we're gonna wrap up this the show with. Don't want to take up too much time here. There are NBA playoffs going on.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed. They've been pretty dang good. I would say the MVP so far of the playoffs has probably been Blake Griffin. Would we agree on that? I mean, He's been incredible.
I would have maybe said John Wall before he got injured, but I also couldn't argue with Blake Griffin.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess well, actually, the real MVP is the bank shot in the Eastern Conference,
Yeah.
right? Like, like the bank has been open over there all day the second round.
Those are good banks, yeah.
I call game. Now, Jabari, what would you say is the number one thing you're taking away from these playoffs? Did anybody sway you on, either positive or negative? Did James Harden kill his value with his play? Did the same thing with Dwight Howard? I already mentioned Blake Griffin. What would you say?
All of those are excellent points. I've also loved seeing the continued development and progression of Bradley Beal. Even though it was in a loss yesterday, it's fantastic to see him stepping up and into a leadership role. A guy that a couple of years ago it was like, okay, he's a nice shooter. What could he possibly develop into? Last year he had a very productive run, and I was looking for this season to be that him to take that next step. He was banged up throughout the year, was unable to unable to do it consistently. But like now in this postseason, especially in the absence of John Wall, as Harrison mentioned, it's fantastic to see that. And some of the guys that you mentioned, with Dwight, I'm not surprised by this. And no, I'm not one of those guys. I'm not necessarily a Dwight hater or anything like that. I was always a Dwight Howard fan. I'm a fan of the game. I'm a fan of of excellence. I'm a fan of incredible athleticism and and things everything associated, all the things that make us love the NBA. So I don't want to see this, but it does kind of show you. I'm gonna quote Rick Fox on this. The Lakers dodged a bullet. The Lakers dodged. And I followed up yesterday. They dodged a $118 million bullet. Now I'm not saying they shouldn't have they couldn't have gotten something for him, and that's a whole different discussion. But in terms of being attached to this guy for 5 years or 4 years, moving forward at $120 million, let's just say hey, some things end up working in your favor. Good, thank God those billboards didn't work.
They dodged the man who's faster than a speeding bullet, you could even say, right?
His stock is declining faster than a speeding bullet.
Yeah. What would you say? What's your big takeaway here, Harrison, for these playoffs? You've been watching pretty intently, right?
Oh yeah, I've been watching almost every game, but I feel dirty, but I'm starting to like Paul Pierce, and so that's probably been my biggest takeaway from the playoffs. And I feel like I almost feel like a bad fan, but I think he's been gone from the Celtics for 2 years, and he has that kind of Kobe Bryant I don't give a shit mentality with the media, and I just I love it when guys go like that, full bore. They just don't care about getting they just are really keeping it 100, as Jalen Rose would say, and his whole open feud with Toronto for whatever I don't know who in Toronto pissed him off, but they need to apologize to the Raptors, and yeah, I mean it's been kind of awesome to listen to everything that he's saying, and I've enjoyed watching the Wizards. I think it's a real shame John Wall went down. They could have snuck into the finals.
Yeah, I don't know. What's the prognosis so far on Wall? Is he officially out for the rest of the series?
I'm pretty sure he's out. I think that they were saying he had broken bones in his hand. I don't think that they're going to risk him coming back.
Although don't say that to Randy Whitman, or else he gets all angry at Michael Lee, who's probably one of the best reporters in the country. Good call there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got 5 broken bones in his hand and wrist. I mean, if he were to come back, I'd be astounded.
And I believe it's his shooting wrist too, right?
No, it's his offhand, but he prefers dribbling with his left. So he's one of those players where he goes hard to his left, but he's a right-handed player.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And if they play the Cavs, Kendrick Perkins is just going to smack that hand every single time Wall comes in the paint. So.
Well, I mean, that's the NBA. I just that's the number one thing, and Bill Simmons would disagree with me on this, but the number one thing that I prefer in 2K versus life isn't necessarily how easy it is to make trades in NBA 2K, but you can turn injuries off in NBA 2K. And man, that would be so great. Let's just think about all the teams there have somebody, banged up to a certain extent. especially in the East. You know, it's really too bad.
Yeah, even worse. Like you anticipate people being banged up. It's worse when they're out. Like John Wall being out, Kevin Love being out.
Yeah.
That and Pau Gasol likely being out. Like it's unfortunate that it's kind of reshaping the way that the way that these series are going to end up going.
Right. So,
The
all right.
positive that came out of that, all these injuries or whatever, was possibly the greatest Pau Gasol vine in history. That camera just kind of zooming in on him, really sad, standing there in the middle of the court. That was.
I wish somebody would have vined. I freaking blew it. But you guys saw the opening when they're singing that baby song.
Oh yeah. No,
Pau,
I'm sure
like,
you can find
he just
that one.
pops up like as happy as Pau can be, like baby. That was great. Oh man, but
Miss
all right,
Pau.
so we'll. Oh, me too. I tweeted at him. He didn't reply, but I miss Pau in my life. Yeah, we'll wrap up this podcast on a championship selection. We'll go who's going to play in the finals and who's going to win. Harrison, we'll start with you. I'll let Jabari think about it for a bit.
I still think the Warriors are going to the finals, and I think I'm still gonna stick with my pre-playoff split of it's really boring, but Warriors Cavs, and I think the Warriors win that series. I think whoever comes out of the West is gonna win. I don't think that's too much in doubt. Unless Houston somehow made it to the finals, but that's not happening.
Yeah, I'm going to go second here and give Jabari the last word of the podcast. I predicted in the preseason that the Clippers and Bulls would face off in the finals. Powell going down hurts that prediction, but I'm going to stand by it just because it's really rare that you get something right for the whole season. So, and the Clippers look pretty damn good, so I'm comfortable with them. I don't know about the Bulls in the East.
Austin Rivers for Finals MVP.
Man, there's nobody happier about that than Doc. Nobody in the playoffs happier than Doc Rivers right now.
Just wait for that. I'm just waiting for the rub it in our faces press conference. It's coming.
Well, that it's just like that press conference with the college dad that coached his son. He was crying next to his son. We're gonna see that. We're gonna see that all over again. Jabari, what do you got? Finals prediction and winner.
Going into the playoffs, I even into the season, or at some point in the season, I thought it was going to be Golden State over the Cavs. The Clippers, man, they look, as you said, they look so tough that I'm not so certain about that pick. But if the Clippers end up winning, I wouldn't be shocked. Whoever's coming out of the West is going to win that series, is going to win the finals.
Yeah, I would have to agree as well. That'll just about do it. Unless I did gloss over one point, just talking about the Clippers. Do you have a couple minutes here to talk about the Clippers?
Sure.
Barry?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked, especially during the Spurs series. I saw a lot of Laker fans out there doing the whole ha ha ha, Clippers gonna Clipper kind of thing, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I kind of think, I don't know, maybe I think too highly of Laker fans, but we should be above that by now. These guys are going for their first title, really their first trip to the finals ever, and we're sitting here just killing them for it. I personally, rivalries make sports. If the Lakers and the Clippers can legitimize their crosstown rivalry, it's better for the game. That's where I'm coming from. Where are you coming from, Jabari?
100%. Look, it's fun to go back and forth as fans. All the banter back and forth on Twitter, all of that. That's fun. Sports radio. That's fun. These types of shows. But I want to see more of it on the court. And as we were talking about it before the show. Harrison mentioned it. We've seen the players get involved and get into it a lot more of these last couple of years. But I would love to be able to. I'd love for Clippers fans to be able to say, well, you know what? Now we got one. You know what I mean? Of course, Lakers fans would respond with, we got 16. But it at least will kind of even more so legitimize the conversation. So like you, I'm a fan of rivalries. I would love to see it. I think it's a good thing. I don't want to see one team being incredible and the other team being terrible, as it kind of is in reverse right now. I'd like to see both teams competing.
Yeah, where are you coming from, Harrison? We talked about this a little bit on the podcast, our last podcast. But has your opinion changed, or are you still feeling the same way about it?
I mean, I'm kind of ambivalent on it. Like, I think that a lot of that is driven by kind of the nature of the coverage, especially at a lot of the big outlets, where it's like, oh, if the Clippers get good, they're gonna steal all the Lakers fans. So, like, of course, like Laker fans are gonna get like upset with kind of like either that characterization that they would just switch because the Clippers had like a couple good years. Or they're actually like, oh, okay, we gotta fight these guys because it's the battle for LA, and like who cares? Like people are gonna like who they're gonna like. Like I honestly like other than like kind of my close friends, I could not care less like who anybody is a fan of or which team has more fans or whatever. Like people are gonna root for who they're gonna root for, and that's kind of their prerogative.
But
Yeah.
Harrison, isn't LA a Clippers town now?
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
it's like if you read ESPN LA, they've declared it like 5 times over since they got Chris Paul, it's a Clipper town. And then you look at like those fan graphs, and the Clippers don't even have a like single county in the nation or something where like the majority of people consider themselves Clipper fans. But sure, it's a Clippers town.
Well, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn here, and it has little to nothing to do with me. But the site I write for now, Lake Show Life, is part of the fan-sided network. And of the NBA sites, the last few weeks, as the playoffs have gone on, our site has gotten more clicks than all the other teams in the network. And it's because the Lakers have such an incredible following. And if you can combine that incredible following with a smarter, more intelligent conversation that overrides not just like ha ha ha, you don't have a title, we have a bunch. Like if you can legitimize that conversation, how does that not wind up a better story for the entire NBA?
Exactly.
All right, so that'll just about do it for us for the show. Jabari, what are you working on now for Basketball Insiders? Just following the playoffs? Do you have any off-season predictions? What are you thinking?
I've been, they've really had me, they've had me following the Western Conference playoffs. I've been doing the game previews I did it for the Clippers and Spurs. I've been doing it for the Clippers and obviously the Rockets. One last game, for that. We're just, with the draft lottery coming up, we're just about to get into, kind of looking at some of those prospects. I don't sit there all throughout the year, breaking down footage. So right now I'm about to go to school on clips of all the prospects.
Sounds good. And Harrison, what are you working on for Silver Screen and Roll?
Well, I got like that piece I kind of plugged earlier coming next week about just like it's going to be nice to have some finality with the lottery over and just to kind of know what's coming a little bit or have a better sense of it, what next season's going to look like. And I also have a Ryan Kelly season review piece that's coming out that I remixed Ignition for, so I'm kind of excited about that one.
You remixed the remix to Ignition?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you coming fresh out the kitchen?
But please do not roll that body, Harrison. Like we're good not seeing that. We don't need to see that at all.
I don't know
On that mental image, we're gonna go ahead and leave you. We'll try to have another show maybe before the NBA lottery. If not, I want to have a live show as the lottery is going on. You can see me either jubilant or crying on the air. Why not? Thank you very much, Jabari, for making time for us today.
Honestly, absolutely my pleasure, guys. I always appreciate a good conversation, a good basketball conversation. You guys are great.
You make us look a lot smarter. Harrison, thanks for tuning in. No, like the conversation becomes smarter. You don't make us all that stuff. No. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and leave. Talk to you guys later.
Okay.